Okay, Tia, thank you very much. The big political story today. President Biden set to give a big speech to the nation tonight following his trip to Israel.
North Central College professor, political science professor Stephen Caliendo joins us now to discuss. Professor, what do you anticipate President Biden will say?
Well, it's good to see you both. There's no question that he's going to make his case directly to the public about funding both the war in Ukraine, as well as backing up Israel in their fight against Hamas as well, and maybe others in the region. He's going to have to package that in some way with some border security measures for sure, and maybe some other things. And I'm really interested to see if he mentions anything about the disarray in the House of Representatives, because no matter what he asks for, even if there's support for it, it can't be passed unless there's at least an acting Speaker of the House.
Professor Caliendo, there's also a proposal to provide $10 billion in military assistance to Israel. We've already sent an estimated $113 billion to Ukraine. Is this money the U.S. is proposing here actually available? And if so, where would it come from?
I mean, as part of the larger budgeting process, this is a question. It's not like it's just sitting there somewhere. It's got to come. I mean, it's up to Congress to figure out how to balance their budget or at least reduce the deficit. And that's one of the things that the Republicans have been so frustrated about in terms of picking their next speaker and what the demand should be. And so, no, it's not like there's a pot of $100 billion sitting around that we can use. But I think what the case that the president will try to make to the public and then through the public to the lawmakers is these fights are too important to not fund. In other words, we don't have a choice here. This is something that we have to do. It's not discretionary. It's something that's important. And he's going to work through the public to try to put that pressure on lawmakers.
And let's talk about the very real possibility of the U.S. getting involved in two wars at the same time. Do you think this is something the U.S. is capable of doing successfully?
It depends what getting involved means. I mean, if getting involved is the way we've been involved so far, which is, sending money, sending weapons, providing support in a number of ways, that's very different than even forget about boots on the ground, but for even flyovers or other kind of, we have boats in the water in the Mediterranean at this point, and but that's not the same thing as sending ground forces in. And so, the way we were 20 years ago, where we were in Afghanistan and in other parts of the region, but then went into Iraq in 2003, I don't think there's much of an appetite for anything like that ever again, or certainly not in the near future. The kind of support the president will be asking for tonight, though, is quite different than that.
Professor Caliendo, before we let you go, looking ahead to the speech tonight, what are you looking for from Biden, or what do you expect to hear from him with regard to support for Israel, but also striking a balance between support for Israel and their military efforts, but also balancing that with the humanitarian crisis that is unfolding?
Anthony, you're right. He's going to have to put this succinctly, because we don't have very long attention spans, especially these days. But he's going to be talking to us from the Oval Office, which is so symbolic. There's very few speeches come there. I mean, we can remember, those of us who are old enough to remember Ronald Reagan soothing us after the Challenger explosion, for instance, Cuban Missile Crisis. Like, these are big topics that come when the president speaks from the Oval Office. And so what he's going to have to say is, broadly speaking, why this is all important, and then specifically why it all needs to be in one bill. And he understands politically, to get it through Congress, there's going to have to be a coalition of folks who really want border security, who really want support for Ukraine, who really want support for Israel. And it can't just be one of the three things, or nothing's going to get done. So he's putting them all together. He's going to offer them that way in the hopes that a coalition can get together and fund all of it.
Professor Stephen Caliendo, thank you.
It's great to see you both.